Hey everyone, my name is Lauren and welcome to Skeptic She. So in my last video, which I will link for you in the description, I talked about how I am an atheist and a former Christian and how that transition happened. But what I didn't go into that I want to touch on a little bit today was what some common questions were from Christian family members, friends, acquaintances when I came out as an atheist. So today what I'm going to do is just read from my written blog. I will also link to that in the description. So as I started to come out, started to write more blog posts about this, let more friends know about this, one of the most common reactions was, "I'm sorry." I got apologies from Christians saying, "I'm really sorry that the church hurt you or failed you. Don't let her many flaws distract you from the love and truth of Christ." Now, in my previous blog posts, as you might see if you go through the archives, those posts were very emotionally charged, but for a good reason. So with that, what I want to say is, while I understand that my prior statements or statements of other people who've recently deconverted can be really emotional, I'm not going to just lie and say that my experience was all sunshine and rainbows. And even if I had experienced and witnessed none of these harms from the church that in hindsight I've come to reflect on, I would still lack good demonstrable reasons to believe that a God exists. So how someone feels about the church has nothing to do with whether or not its claims are reasonable to accept. Kind of makes sense. Okay, so this is one that really frustrates me. I started to go into this a little bit in my last video, but a lot of people have said to me, "It seems you were never presented with a correct understanding of Christian doctrine." So with that, they say it kind of seems like because you were never given this correct understanding, correct interpretation, you're kind of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, which I can understand. And I used to think that when I was Christian about my friends who were not believers. So it seems you were never presented with a correct understanding of Christian doctrine. Why throw it all away? So the implication here is that if I only had the correct understanding of Christianity, I would still be a believer. In 25 years, I have not seen any Christian individuals or groups wholly agree with each other's interpretations of doctrine, which they derive from the Bible and sometimes other texts. The Bible itself contains copies of translations, of interpretations, of edits, of copies, and so on. Even if its books were written clearly and cohesively, and all its authors were known, the Bible and anything else claimed to be an authority on Christian doctrine have yet to be demonstrated as anything other than man-made. Therefore, if there were only one brand of Christianity and one understanding of doctrine that could be easily agreed upon, that still would not in any way prove the existence of God or the truth of what he supposedly teaches. Moreover, this would say nothing to validate Christianity over the thousands of other religions that make different or no God claims. I think that pretty much explains itself. So let's go into the next one. The question is, so you believe that when you die, that's it, nothing else happens? Short answer is yes, but here's what I said. So first of all, I want to throw a little disclaimer on here, and I did write this in my blog, but not all atheists disbelieve in an afterlife. There are definitely some atheists who aren't really on the skeptical side. They just don't believe in the God that they used to believe in, or they just kind of have a blurry understanding of what atheism actually is. So they will accept some things on no evidence, but they won't accept a God on no evidence, which to me doesn't really work out. So with that, I have enough evidence to believe that when I die, there will be no more conscious I, but the matter of my body will become part of something else, and I mean this in a purely physical, biological sense. Those who survive me, assuming I have living family and friends when I die, will have memories of me, pictures, songs, stories, and so on, but for me, death will be no different than it was before my birth. Nothingness without any mechanisms by which to experience the nothingness. Maybe rewind that, re-listen to it, think about it. Do you remember what it was like before you were born? No? That's what it's going to be like when you're dead. Now, obviously, this is a very sensitive issue because heaven or any other type of afterlife, that's usually the main goal for people who believe in a God and believe in an afterlife. That is their goal, is to end up in that paradise, that place of continually being able to worship their God and be with other believers or people they've lost. So I understand that it's hard for people to think about, but really we do not have solid, testable, repeatable, measurable evidence to suggest that an afterlife exists. The next question to kind of go along with this is, how can you as an atheist live with the tragedy of death? This is an appeal to emotion, which is, I believe, a fallacy, but nevertheless I want to answer. You assume that death without an afterlife is inherently tragic, but whether something is tragic or not can only be based on perception, no matter how widely held. Tragedy is not really an objective thing when you think about it. That said, if everyone were to agree that death is a tragedy, this view, as far as we know, can only be held by the living. We don't have any good reason to think that death is tragic for the dead, because we don't have any evidence to suggest that consciousness or sentience continues after death. Once your brain dies, you and your experiences can't happen anymore, as far as we know. Moreover, nothing about the sadness or lack thereof of death, or the potential presence of an afterlife, says anything about the existence of a god, or whether the Christian afterlife is worth seeking. So, in other words, because we have no evidence to suggest that this afterlife or this paradise exists, or that we would even really want to be there, why seek it until you have evidence of what it's actually going to bring you? I'm using the ring light for the first time today, and I am sweaty! If I look really shiny, that's why. You can live. Okay, so this one's gonna be pretty long. The question is, if you don't know for certain whether or not God exists, why call yourself an atheist? Why not call yourself agnostic or not label yourself at all? Again, I want to reiterate, I kind of touched on this in my last video, but atheism doesn't mean that you're making a claim that there are no gods. At least if you're using the term correctly, in my opinion. When you say that you're an atheist, you're saying that you cannot accept the claims that any gods exist. There's a difference there. So atheists don't make any claims, we reject them. The term atheist generally refers to someone who lacks belief in a god or gods, makes no claims of certainty, and presents no platforms about what atheists do believe. Agnostic generally refers to someone who believes that a god or other supernatural claims cannot be known, which is true. It's sometimes suggested that all reasonable atheists should call themselves agnostic atheists, since they neither believe in gods nor have a mechanism to know of their existence, which, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And I totally understand that point, but I don't see the value in agnosticism as a label, because people can't honestly speak about anything with certainty, including this very sentence. We can only speak about what we think we know or what we have near certainty about. So I currently have the same lack of mechanism to test God claims as I do to test whether or not we are living in a simulation run by higher alien species. And then there's the classic, I have as much evidence for a God as I do for Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, etc. So with that, there's no reason for me to say I don't know whether or not a god or gods exist, because I can't know. Instead, I can simply say I have at this time no good reason to believe that a god or gods exist. So this is why I call myself an atheist and not agnostic, and not an agnostic atheist. I just find the agnostic addition to be unnecessary. With that, you may say, well, if you're saying that you can be an agnostic about anything, well, you can also be an atheist about any god, so why call yourself an atheist if it's just saying what you're not? So here's why I find the label of atheist important. As far as we can tell, most of the world believes or claims to believe in a god or gods, and people often view such beliefs as authoritative over their understanding of nature and morality, how governing bodies should operate, how people should dress, talk, or think, and most crucially, where humans will spend eternity, if anywhere, when they die, which we've already talked about at length. So I really see value in speaking as one of a minority of people who don't accept any God claims, yet have understandings about how all these various parts of life work. Government, nature, etc. I want to be a positive example for anyone who has preconceived notions about atheists, or who hold the fear-based or perhaps people-pleasing idea that belief in any god is better than non-belief. I hate when people say that. That is so ridiculous. I could go on forever about that. I really can't stand when people are like, oh, you should just believe, just in case. That's the whole Pascal's wager thing. We can go into that another time. Anyway, continuing. And for anyone who's thinking critically about their beliefs or considering coming out as an atheist. Whether I've done a good job or not of presenting positive atheism is really a matter of opinion, obviously, but I will continue to pursue this and do my best to grow in the process. So that being said, being an atheist does not holistically describe my character or what I do believe, and eventually I do want to get into topics other than just atheism, but for now this is my focus. I'm gonna have to get one of those oil blotters for my face whenever I use the ring light, because it is very hot. I was not expecting it to be this hot. It's only like 6 inches wide. That is so... can't deal. Okay, so here's the last reaction that I got a lot, mostly from older generations. They say, you are right on time for going through this phase. I have observed that a lot of people around your age try the atheist thing, but you will believe again eventually. This is a natural and common progression. Okay, so first of all, this is, I'm sure, what a lot of queer people hear when they first come out. I'm sure that they hear this a lot, that it's just a phase or a trend. That is extremely offensive, extremely condescending. Here was my answer. This is an anecdotal fallacy. It's dripping with ageism, and it implies that my educated and reasonably held conclusion about theistic claims is some flighty decision, as if belief or unbelief were a choice at all. Oh, I got the burps. See my last video for my thoughts about whether or not beliefs are a choice. I cannot simply block out everything I now know about the universe at the drop of a hat and sincerely believe in a God again. Even if the Christian God were to show up and convince me that he was real, he would still have a lot of explaining to do before I could so much as consider worshiping him. Are some atheists actually atheists for bad or invalid reasons? Of course, like I said before, yes. But making this blanket claim about young atheists or any atheists is ignorant at best. The claim that it's a phase. Even if all Christians or theists were to go through this natural progression of unbelief and being born again, if you will, this would still not demonstrate the truth of the claims made by Christianity. So I think the overarching theme here is how I feel, how Christians feel, how the church treated me or didn't treat me, what we want to be true or what we don't want to be true. None of that has anything to do with whether or not the claims of a God existing are trustworthy. So these are just a few of the well-meaning, albeit fearful and at times demeaning responses to my coming out as an atheist. And then I just added in here, and I want to reiterate on video, that I understand I am very, very lucky to have a family who hasn't disowned me, even though they strongly disagree with my lack of belief in a God, even though it's not a choice. How many times can I say that? I have lost a few of my Christian friends who genuinely don't know how to have that deep relationship or maintain any sort of relationship with unbelievers. I think that's a little bit dangerous to not expose yourself to anyone outside of your bubble, but I can't, force them to keep loving me for who I am. No one can do that. However, I have also kept a lot of my Christian friends, and I've also gained several friends in coming out as an atheist. Unfortunately, not every unbeliever has this advantage. A lot of people lose their family ties, friendships, jobs, self-confidence, or even their very lives in coming out, which is another reason I want to keep talking about it and keep shedding a positive light. So to any closeted atheists who feel that they could accept any repercussions that might come their way should they come out as an atheist, I would recommend telling the truth. Listen carefully to any reactions you get as a result. Think about why they may be right or wrong, and whether or not they are worth responding to. Something that I really struggled with when I first came out was picking my battles. Just be careful of that. Be respectful, be kind, be calm as much as possible. Challenge yourself, challenge the majority who label atheists as broken, lost, or evil. And remember, like I said at the end of my last video, why and how are two of the most important words you can utter in this life. So never ever fault yourself for asking questions. And that's it. Those are my common responses. I'm sure there are more that I can come up with and tell you about, but that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Share it with your friends if you wish, if you please. Keep asking questions, and I will see you next time. Because it doesn't really relax. I have a popcorn kernel in my mouth. God damn it. Neighbor, please stop peeing in my video. How governing body...